Good morning, it's March 21st. We're going to get on our tanning project here, which I've been neglecting, mostly because, well, it's a combination of being busy, weather, needing to do these update videos, so I can't just run out and work. I have to strap on a camera. So we have our cattle hide in here, sheep hides in there. We're going to take a look at the liquor strength. What I've done is I've left this purposefully to get weak, so I can get rid of some of this liquid before I strengthen the solution, because this is about the amount of liquid I want, but I want it a lot stronger. So I'm going to add this here. You can see there's some mold growing on there. That's just normal. This is actually very strong liquor. This is made by filling that pot with oak bark, just covering it with water and boiling it, simmering it, or actually below simmer, but hot for like 3 or 4 hours. This is very, very strong, but the yeast will live on the sugars that are dissolved in there and do their thing. No need to worry about that. Surprisingly, there's not much growing in here because this is now very weak. But if I'm going to add this or most of this or a bunch of this, I want to get rid of some of this first. So what I've been doing is I just wanted to leave this for a few days to use up almost all the tannin, and there is almost nothing left here. It looks like there's some color, but look how weak. Can you see that? It's just washed out. There's just, there's nothing available in here for the hide at all. And we don't want to leave the hide in here for any length of time. Now, it has been in here for a while, like it could be a couple of weeks or more, but it's been really cold. Like, it's still spring, and it's been a cool spring so far. I'm not really worried about the hide right now. Now, if it was warm weather, we'd start to have some problems, and we'd see like a oil-like skim of film, nasty stuff on here. It would probably smell pretty bad. I don't think it probably doesn't smell bad at all. Yeah, it just smells like this kind of, I don't know you can't really describe it. It's like a fermented bark tan smell. So everything's okay for now, but typically I wouldn't leave it this long. I'd really rather not, but it just, it's how the timing worked out. But now this is super weak, so we can get rid of a bunch of this. Let's throw this up on the beam after we wash the beam. I'm gonna get all this dirt off. And we'll cut a little corner off this, take a look at it. So what we did is we boiled our batch of bark 3 times, barely covered with water, in these big pots. Both of these pots were full of bark, as you can see. The third boil and the second boil all went in there, 100% of them. That's what the hide is used so far. Let's see if we have any penetration. Now, this is kind of a loose part of the skin, so it'll tan a little bit quicker. Well, this is really dull. It's actually further than I thought, but again, this part of the skin is kind of a loose fiber, so it's going to penetrate more quickly. And like that end of the skin is much more like tough, thick, hard material that's going to take a little bit longer to tan, I think. Let's test that. Yeah, so like for instance, this corner right here is just real thick and hard and stiff. That's like the stuff you really want for harness and belts and sheaths and stuff. Tough. This knife's pretty dull. It's just something I grabbed out of the kitchen. But this hide is also very tough. So now look at that, That gives you an idea of how far we have to go. A long ways. Because this is denser, it's not penetrated quite as deep, and it's much thicker. So that's why it can take months to tan these hides. Now, I haven't decided completely whether I'm going to layer this or not. So layering means that I'm going to lay it away with layers of shredded bark between any hide surfaces. So I can kind of accordion fold it into the tub that way. That's fine, as long as there's no place where the hide is touching another part of the hide. There's always got to be some bark in between there. And then you cover that with either water or bark tanning liquor, and then you just leave it to sit. And the bark is slowly leaching out the tannin and tanning the hide. It takes a long time because the hides aren't moving. Cattle hides would take approximately like 9 months to a year, usually with about 3 to 4 changes of bark in between. As a home tanner, and a good way I think to approach it is to partially tan the skin first, like quite a bit in liquors, which I'm going to continue to do. And then if you get it close enough to done, you can layer it away in a single time with, the shredded bark, and finish the hide without having to take it out and change that bark in 3 months and do that again for another 3 months. So yeah, I often do a combination where I'll get it tanned a lot of the way first, like halfway or more, and then I'll layer it away. But what we're going to do for now is we're going to bump the strength of this up without increasing the volume of the liquid, because this now is just garbage and it can be dumped. So I'm going to dump approximately as much as I'm going to add. And now the tanning is going to slow down a bit. And you know what? I do have one of these yellow tubs cleared now. I think it's time to switch to that, actually. See, now this will fold in here without the sides folding up at all. So it's just a nicer fit. So now we have this nice, rich, dark liquor. That's going to last a while. I mean, the hide's still taking it up. You're going to take it up reasonably fast. But, I don't have to stir it every day or anything. If I want this to go faster, the things I would do are manipulate it every day. At least pick it up and move it. Any kind of stretching, throwing it on the beam and refleshing the flesh side and then putting it back is real helpful. Keeping the solution strength up enough, any kind of movement of the liquor or the hide. Those are the things that are going to speed this process up if you're in a hurry. I am not, and I don't need extra things to do. I have so much grafting to do, it's like giving me anxiety. I'm very happy to just leave that. Here are the sheep hides. The liquor has definitely gotten weak. And I think the thing to do with these now is we just throw them on the beam and check them. Now, I don't want them sitting in a liquor this weak, even in these temperatures, for too long. I either need to put them in a new, stronger solution so they're, preserved and they're still working, but they're probably tanned enough that they're not going to absorb that much anyway, or I need to get them out and start finishing them, basically, which I think that's probably where we're at. Wow. This is such a cool texture. It could be a little light in the center there. And, better safe than sorry if there's any doubt. Just getting it into a strong enough liquor and letting it sit for an extra 2 weeks, week 2, 3, will ensure that it's well tanned, and that when the skin is finished and dried and all, like, there's not some part of it in there that's not well tanned that's going to seize up, basically like rawhide. So when you dry a piece of rawhide, everything like the fibers and stuff all glue together and glue to themselves, and that's what makes rawhide that kind of like hard, horn-like texture, right? But when you tan the skin, everything changes, and if the skin is well tanned and you dry it, it shouldn't be like that at all. It should be leather-like. I mean, it might be a little brittle, it might be a little stiff or something, but it's not going to be like, if you can tap on it and it sounds like a piece of plastic or horn or something, then, or like rawhide, it's not tanned enough. With these, I kind of feel like they could use a bump. And just to make sure, we've put a lot of time and effort into these. They're looking really nice, actually. And I want to make sure that they're done. But I still want to throw all of them up here and check them just to get a measure or like a reference point for how done they are. And I have plenty of bark chopped. That's not a problem. I do have to cook it. Yeah, see, this looks more uniform to me. So I have a feeling that like maybe just a couple of them with thick necks might have some less finished. I have to say I do kind of like the idea of just laying these back away in bark because I'm just so busy with other stuff right now. I'm definitely not relishing the idea of trying to finish these. Yeah, I'm not liking the looks of that. The center of this one just looks a little more light colored and different. It kind of puffs out weird. So these are definitely all going to go back. And again, there's nothing here. There's nothing useful there. If there's anything useful, it's such a small amount that it just doesn't count. It doesn't count for preserving the hides. It doesn't count for tanning the hides. Here's a big section of, you can see the, I hope you can see this different colored section. That's where these hides got contaminated with that alum stuff. Okay, now this one really looks under-tanned, which is funny because it's one of the thinner ones. So maybe this is a different variety of sheep or something that has a little bit thicker, denser skin, or, you know, different sex, different age, who knows. Bottom line, all these are going back. They need to go into fresh bark, so I need to make a new batch of bark. I'm going to boil both of those for, 20 minutes or so, drain the liquor off, save the bark to try to grow mushrooms on, because I'm real curious about how this bark, this spent bark, will grow mushrooms. And I have some oyster spawn, mushroom spawn already ready to go. And we'll put that liquor back over the new bark. It'll already be hot, so that'll, get up to temperature really quick. And I will cook that, both of those for, someone asked about that again too. And I like to keep it right at a simmer or just under a simmer for about 3 to 4 hours each cook, right? Like bring it up to temperature and just hold it there for that long before draining the water and putting in new water and doing it again. These are going to turn out cool, you guys. It's going to be a very stretchy, soft, luxurious type of leather. Perfect for wrapping a girl's butt in some super tight shorty shorts. Now I just want to make sure that there's nothing major poking up here and floating. Like say if there's a big piece of hide up here that's floating, there's a good chance that will become discolored from oxidation or something, and it'll never quite be the same. So by tomorrow, I should have this new batch of liquor. I may or may not show that, but I'm basically just gonna, I probably will dump all of this out. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. So once that bark liquor's done, we'll come back and bump this up, take a look at that, how it's doing. And I think that's it for right now. See you in a day or two. So I want to talk this morning about liquor and tannin management, because this is a big issue. This is not tanning anymore at all. It's very weak looking, and there's two problems here. One is I want to tan the hides and they're not tanning, and they're not going to tan. The tannin that's already bound to the skin, which is why there's no tannin left, is not going to unbind from the skin, travel into the skin and bind to another part of the skin or anything like that. This is just going to sit here. Now, there's parts of the skin inside the core, like the center of the skin, that are not tanned all the way or not at all. So there is no other way to tan it than to get more tannin into the solution. The other problem is preservation. So it's been cold, it's still spring, and it's just starting to warm up now. I'm seeing like a little bit of a scum, like a film, almost looks like an oily film on the surface here. That's a bad sign. And if this sits here long enough in this weak solution, those untanned parts of the skin in there are going to start to decay and have issues. But if I put in like a really strong solution in here, or if I like redo this solution and it's strong enough to really preserve and keep the hides, I'm going to tan the hides and there's going to be a ton of tannin left in here. And then I either need to throw it away, which is wasteful and it's a bunch of work to like chop the bark and stuff, or I need to, start a new batch of hides in it. In this case, I don't want to. I want to throw this liquor away because it's ropey and weird. So you want to preserve the skin, but if it's actively tanning and you tan it quickly, you can use up all the tannin in the liquor like this and then just throw it out, So there are ways to manage the tanning where you don't need a really strong solution to leave the hides in. When you need a strong enough solution is to make sure that when the hides are sitting for long periods of time, they're tanning and they're not just sitting there in weak solution going bad, because this solution is going to start getting very funky very soon. So in this case, what I'm going to do is dump some of this out. I'm going to add some liquor. I guess I have a solution that's like a first cook and a second cook mixed together. And I'm going to put a bunch of that in here, but I'm going to try to put in an amount that is mostly going to get used up. Like if I had more hides coming and this solution wasn't all funky and weird, I might just put in a strong solution in here, use some of it up, and then I'd have a slightly weakened but still strong enough bath to like start a new batch of skins in, say. So those are some of your options when you're managing liquors and looking at like the strength and how long the hides are going to be in there and stuff. When I say that you want to leave the hides in a solution that's strong enough to preserve them, that kind of assumes a lot about like how warm it is, how long the skins are going to be in there, how close to tanned they already are, because these are very close to being finished. The last video we laid this away, I think it already looks a little bit weaker, and I haven't moved it since. That was like at least days ago. I don't even know how long. It smells really nice in here. You know, it's got a little bit of a fermented bark tan smell going, but it doesn't smell bad. It actually smells kind of good. Kind of like leather and fruit. It's time already to add more liquor to this. So in this one, I don't want to accumulate too much more liquid right now, so I'm going to put in a fair amount of a very strong tanning solution, and then we'll see what we're going to do with it from there. I'm not really sure yet. Okay, so this is a first cook, very strong. Look at the density of this. Can you see how dense and strong that is? And compare that to this. Much weaker. Look at my glove through the liquor. Basically, if there's any liquor, you can't see my glove, whereas this one you can see through it pretty easy. I'm just going to pitch a bunch of this in. I think I'm going to put all this in, and then we'll think about doing a layer, maybe on the next move. So ideally, I would still move this every day, but I'm not going to, because I'll forget about it and I'm lazy, and it will still tan. I don't understand how it works. Like in the beginning, if you have the skin touching itself at all, there'll be untanned spots, but once it's well underway, it just seems like you can stir it much less frequently, like every couple of weeks, and it still ends up tanning all the way through. So this solution is weak enough that I feel fine about dumping some of it out. But I don't want to dump too much out, like that's not enough liquid to keep those hides submerged. Now this is a first cook and a second cook mixed together. There's a lot of tannin in there. I mean, that's more than enough to finish these skins. So I'm going to end up wasting some. But that's enough liquor to get my hides submersed. When these sheep hides are looking finished, we'll test them out, decide whether to remove them or not, and go on to the next step. Cattle hide's going to be, I'm going to say 2 to 3 months, depending. If we layer it, probably longer. Time to start another batch of bark. I don't want to fill it too full. This stuff boils over really easy. In fact, I boiled a batch over yesterday. You can't let it boil hard or it'll boil over. The liquid is really thick and it gets kind of soapy. It just makes suds really easy, and then it ends up boiling over.